What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another segment of AV Automatic Victory, where we all win together through peace, love, and transparency. So, before I start, let me apologize to anyone that was already in the live 5 minutes prior or a few minutes prior. I was basically doing some good old meditation. Just wanted to make sure I have my thoughts so that when I do hop on the live stream, everything will be straight and down to the point. So I do apologize I apologize for that to you all. And welcome to another episode of Matters of the People. So we're gonna start with the introduction to AV Automatic Victory, and then I will break down tonight's topic as well as, just really give you guys my perspective in regards to legislation that will or can possibly be pushed into action, regardless whether it's evident and apparent, not just in the locals but also in the state and federal government as well, but also legislation that might not be known for a whole lot of people, especially in the local, state, and federal levels of government. So let's go ahead and right into the introduction right now. What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Matters of the People. Welcome. So tonight's topic is going to be life after COVID. More specifically, the ideal laws and or legislation that will be passed in the local, state, and federal level. The reason why I came up for this particular topic for tonight's episode of Matters of the People is simply because I do feel that there are some adjustments that will come into place as the cases for COVID-19 go down lower and lower nationwide and worldwide. I do believe that there are certain laws that are going to be set in place. Like obviously, I hate to use this example, but perfect example, Texas, they feel so confident in having a mask mandate when in fact, they have so much more COVID cases than combined to 5 or 8 states combined. So it's crazy to me, even still, when that happened last week. But as the COVID cases for COVID-19 go down, there are going to be some legislation that's going to be signed by policy and lawmakers that are going to make it more so in terms of like being able to adapt from the things that we currently have to do during COVID that we wouldn't necessarily have to do after we get past the COVID-19 era. And then I also feel like there's certain things that a lot of government, especially government officials, aren't necessarily going to tell people, or rather they're not going to really have it and say like your mainstream media or mainstream media outlets, so to speak, simply because they know that if people actually are more hit or if they get more acquainted with that particular legislation or that particular law, it's going to cause issues. Mainly, it might be towards a certain race. It might be towards a certain sexual orientation or whatever difference, whatever the case may be. Shout out to the one person that's actually in the live stream. Welcome. Thank you for hopping onto the live. I do appreciate it. And again, if you was here at 8:15 or even earlier than 8:15, then I do apologize. I did have to meditate in regards to, just making sure that I have my thoughts and I was actually have my notes for this podcast tonight as well. Hopefully tonight, my special guest, Miss Queen Aaliyah, hops into the podcast tonight as well. But of course, if she's not actually able to attend to the podcast, then it is all good and gravy. We can always set that up for the next episode as well. So let me just, before I go into the topic, let me go over what has been going on currently. So as I mentioned before, we are seeing a little bit of a slight decrease. It's not a significant decrease, but we are starting to see that there's a slight decrease within a lot of the states, more so in like the major big states. So say Texas, California, Florida, New York, the states that we tend to hear the most about, the states that really have the larger population, we are seeing us in a little bit, just a little tiny bit of a decrease towards COVID-19. On top of that, as I mentioned in the last episode of Matters of the People, the American Rescue Plan did get passed not only in the House, but it also got passed to the Senate, and it was officially signed by President Joe Biden a few days ago, actually. So, what I'm going to do is look at my notes real briefly and go over all of the things that the American Rescue Plan, the benefits that it's actually going to do, not just for the people that are in like just the local state level, but also in the state and federal level of government as well. So, as I mentioned in last week's episode, there is going to be a 1,400 payments, as they will be set to individuals making under than 75K a year and or couples making under 150K a year. In addition to that, the additional amounts will be sent for dependents claim on people's tax returns, and incomes will be based on the most recent tax returns from the IRS between the years of 2019 to 2020. So, what this means is that if you did a tax return between, say, early 2019 to even if you did your taxes pretty recently, like last year in 2020, more likely you are going to get either a automatic deposit of 1,400, or if you aren't able to get a mobile deposit of 1,400, they will most likely will send you a deposit. And this was one of the things that I actually enjoyed about my podcast last week when I discussed it with Dr. Tony himself, was that it's not just the stimulus checks that are a huge benefit, but it's also some of the budgeting that this particular legislation has had set forth, and say like the health department and the insurances department, all the other factors that, quite frankly, the government over the past 4 to 8 years have not really done a good job, especially when it comes to health insurance. So I'm very, 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 very happy that this legislation was actually able to get passed in both the House and the Senate, and that it was signed by President Joe Biden. Now we can actually see those people that are actually qualified for that particular legislation, for them to actually just get something to just help people out in the streets or in their homes, or in case it be just someone that just actually be able to at least be in a better predicament than where they were now. Now, how does this all relate to tonight's topic? Well, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of examples of laws that we know of, or at least possible ideas of laws that can be put in place. And then I'm going to give you guys some ideas of laws to where most people aren't even talking about, that aren't as apparent as they are in, say, like your favorite news channel, or if you guys, love or have a favorite podcast. I don't know if you guys are into politics as I am, but, you probably wouldn't hear of these particular legislations or laws in your mainstream media simply because they're not trying to talk about it. But before I discuss about it, let me make sure I look in the comments. Hey, shout out to Tuba Chat in the building. What's going on, Tuba Chat? How are you? How are you, Tuba Chat? Thank you. If anybody who is freshly new and creating your own YouTube channel, especially if you are just starting out and you would really love to connect with some great people, tune into the Tuba Chat. I cannot express this enough on how much the Tuba Chat has definitely helped me, not just in me growing as a great YouTube streamer, but also as just being able to grow as a person, to just look out for all people. So shout out to the Tuba Chat. I'm happy that you're actually able to attend to my podcast. So the examples. So let me start with the most obvious example. Perfect example of this is, I know if you guys have not heard about this, then this is fine too. There is rumors that are likely to be true in terms of passports or IDs, or even bus passes, to even Uber passes, to where they actually have it set up to where if you don't get your 2 shots of the COVID vaccine or vaccinations, or case it be, then you wouldn't necessarily be able to do things like, say, travel outside the country, or be able to work at your job, or even be able to do the simplest things and say, for example, go to the grocery store, do your normal, typical routine, depending on your quality of life and what your livelihood looks like. Now, my problem with this is that you, from a government standpoint, you can't just assume that people are just going to automatically take the vaccine, especially if their logic is, oh, if they're going to rebuttal and taking this vaccination, then we're going to take away some of the rights that they enjoy, or at least the rights that they want to enjoy as the cases start to increase and as, their state's regulations start to, get back to normal, or a case may be, because this causes two problems. One, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, not a lot of people are taking this vaccination. Actually, let me rephrase that. People are taking the vaccination, but they're not taking the vaccination simply because it's the government authority, or there's like a certain person or authorization figure that's telling them, oh, you need to take this vaccine. No, most people are taking the vaccination because of one or two reasons. Either one, they either caught COVID and this is their last resort in terms of them being able to not only catch it again, but also to ensure that their loved ones and their peers and the people that they care about, that they are constantly around, don't get the COVID-19, or AKA the coronavirus, onto other people. And then the other second reason is that people is taking this, the vaccination, is simply because they sick of this crap. They tired of being at home. They are tired of having to work remotely. People, listen, I have met more people outside, or either outside or as I'm doing like my typical day job, and literally people are at the point now to where they're like, you know what, bro, forget this, bro. I'm gonna take this vaccine. Hopefully a whole bunch of people will take the vaccine, and then they're gonna open the world back up. They're not doing the whole due diligence that people should be advising people to, in terms of actually researching the vaccine, but rather they're taking it because they want to get to the destination, right? Which is having things back open. Everyone's able to travel. Everyone's able to do the things that they were actually able to do, rather than actually taking a step back and thinking to themselves in terms of like, okay, if I take this vaccine, is it going to solve the solution of me making sure that I don't catch the coronavirus, or that I'm actually be able to protect my quality of life or my quality of livelihood? Let me check in the comments as well. Hello, Carrie McCall. How are you? Thank you for that information. No problem. No problem. Tuba chat. Thanks for the props. Happy to hear. No problem. Thank you, man. Thank you. But it's just, I just feel that as the numbers for COVID-19 are actually starting to come down, I don't necessarily believe that the right solution in having certain legislations being in place either now and moving forward into the present to the nearby future is to limit certain things that are going to inevitably have people actually take a vaccine, which, mind you, by the way, the first two strands of this vaccination did not go so well at all. That was one of the reasons why people were so negative, or they were so conscious about it. It wasn't because, it was a vaccine. It was because of the timing of the vaccine. And we have to remember, most vaccinations, whether it's, it could be towards anything. It could be mucus, chicken pox, measles. What was it? All the way back in the beginning of either, if I'm not mistaken, this was between 2018 all the way maybe into like late 2016, the H1V1, which was pretty much similar to the measles and the COVID-19 case, but it wasn't as airborne, if you will. People were still not taking or budging into taking those vaccinations simply because they did the vaccinations at such a rapid rate, to the point to where you really had to do your whole due diligence and really think back to yourself in terms of like, okay, they are telling me in this podcast, telling me in this news outlet that there is a cure, so to speak, towards this particular virus. Should I take it? And so for me personally, the danger in government, whether it's state, local, or federal, the danger in having these laws set in stone, or even if these laws are like part of like the discussion boards that are in these particular governments or government structures, I should say, is that you can't just assume that by trying to make everything set up to where you have to get vaccinated to enjoy, traveling or going to the grocery store, or the case may be, it's only going to make people retaliate more rather than apply by the law. So, me personally, if I was, say, a congressman or, say, a politician or a case may be, and let's say, for example, I'm the congressman of Washington, D.C., for example, because I know that Washington, D.C., it's more of a metropolitan area, which means that a lot of people are going to be either taking public transportation, bus or train, Uber or Lyft, whatever they decide to commute. I wouldn't penalize people in terms of them like saying, oh, you have to get vaccinated just so you can make it to work. No. Now, I would make it more of a requirement for people to make sure that they actually have a goddamn mask on. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. Have a mask on? Yes, absolutely. But trying to penalize people for them trying to penalize people just because they're either done their research or because they don't feel comfortable in taking the vaccination, which in my opinion doesn't necessarily work for everybody. That's just not, in my opinion, that's just one of the worst ways that you can actually have a rebellion, not just in a particular state or within an entire community, but also just nationwide and worldwide too. But since I already gave you guys an example in terms of some of the more like apparent, or at least from, an ideal law that we probably have heard of from, say, like social media, from the CNN news, or what case may be, let me tell you guys an example of what legislatures could be coming up with that we don't know of. Now, if you guys are more so into like the STEM, so like science, technology, engineering, and math, or even if you guys are into robotics in this per se, you guys might know what I'm about to talk about. But there was an article that I read on the CNN website, and it talked about how moving forward within the next 2 to 5 months, that there is a possibility that the police departments will start initiating their own police robotic dogs program. Now, to simplify this, what this means is that they are going to literally have their own robotic canine dogs, or a case may be, so that rather than have, like, say, an in-person officer or patrol officer be in a certain neighborhood or a certain community, or a case may be, that robotic dog is not only going to be trained to let people know, like, hey, make sure that, you're walking on the street or whatever case it be, but there's also going to be a surveillance system to where that dog is going to be able to watch every single thing. So I will have that article in the description down below when I do get done streaming, and once this stream ends up being into the YouTube algorithm. But my thoughts on it personally, it's scary as fuck. I ain't gonna sugarcoat nothing for y'all. The idea of having a actual robotic dog. Now, mind you, I'm sure you guys have seen some picture on Instagram, or maybe you guys have seen like a lot of cool YouTube videos about it, or a case may be. But just the idea that it's come to this point to where now the police department is actually starting to take more advancements in technology just to ensure that people are actually going about things like, and let's take COVID-19 out of the picture for a second, just for a second. Just the idea of having to get to the point to where you actually have a robotic dog actually searching around neighborhoods or communities just to make sure that people stay in check, or a case would be, I don't know about that. How you guys feel about that? I don't know. Hey, shout out to I Am DJ Main Event. What's going on, boss? I don't think the government would be able to force all people to take the vaccine. People can reject vaccinations citing religious reasons. So I think that that would be what people use as a workaround. Absolutely. I agree. And thank you, DJ Main Event. That's a very great point because let's be honest, there's always some loophole in a sense that people can always utilize to kind of get around like some particular issue or some trick, if you will, for people not to oblige by a certain law or regulation, where case may be. Because this is a very good point, and this is another good example why I decided to go about with this topic tonight. You have some states that are not as lenient in terms of having their citizens or constituents go about certain policies. And then you have other states or other communities where their rules and regulations are more so lenient simply because they have an idea in terms of how their constituents' audience is, meaning that they know which certain laws are actually going to get passed and which laws are actually going to at least be applied by. And then there are also certain regulations to where they know for a fact that that state is not going to be able to actually get by or have the citizens of that state or that community to actually go and follow that particular law, simply because they know their audience, they know their demographics, they know exactly the types of people that live within the main communities, regardless of money, regardless of race, regardless of religion, where it case may be. A perfect example: the state of Texas is not going to come up with some law that relates to, say, what's a good example of Texas in one of their a legislation that most of their people would not tolerate. Oh, perfect example. The state of Texas would not come up with some law that will try to be pushed into the House and Senate in regards to, immigrants being able to bring the whole entire family from overseas and shit. They're not doing that shit. You know why they're not doing that shit? Because they know that the second they do that, they got so many daggone conservatives in that sucker that they're going to be like, hold up, we ain't passing this shit. And the people in the community ain't going to be passing this crap. But I'm glad that you brought that comment up, DJ Man Event, because that's a perfect example in terms of how all government structures should go about the likelihood in terms of their regulations and laws that will be pushed, both apparent and also hidden wise as well. So I'm very, very glad that you mentioned that comment. So I apologize if I had to go on that little example rant for a bit, but that was a very, 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 very great comment that DJ Man Event made into the live stream. I appreciate that, my brother. I definitely appreciate that. But let me know in the comments, like in the comments description, what policies do you guys anticipate that government structures, whether it's local, state, and or federal, will actually make, not just within the state level, but also throughout the United States? Do you feel like that some of their policies are going to actually be justifiable in terms of them actually putting out legislation that's actually going to help people like actually be safe after COVID-19? Or do you feel like there's a lot of policies or where government officials might actually turn the other cheek and be like, oh, well, you know what? We don't want people to be wearing a mask even after we don't have COVID-19. Oh, hey, since COVID-19 is gone, maybe we should, open clubs back up to the old capacity or whatever the case would be. Let me guys know in the comments and what you guys think, because it's a very, very tricky, it's an interesting dynamic with a very tricky, what's the word for? It's just very tricky. It's very, very perplexing. That's the word I was looking for. It's very perplexing, especially when you think back to everything that has occurred prior to COVID-19 and the laws and the rules and regulations that were set in place for people to actually go about in terms of health. And then, of course, as we've been through COVID for nearly about a year and a half now, just to see the turnaround in terms of where we were like last March when COVID first occurred, to now having it like have history repeat itself, or not necessarily history repeating itself, but just to see the progression in terms of like how we're actually starting to progress into a much better perspective or better quality of life, even as the numbers for COVID-19 are actually starting to go down. So let me know in the comments how do you guys feel in regards to any possible legislations that could affect people within their quality lives after COVID-19, present, rise, and future, because y'all's opinions matter too. All right, so we have one comment. All right. So DJ Main Event says government mandates, are ending as many states are going back to normal. COVID is becoming a 2020 problem. I see that. Right. I agree. I do, although what I will say, DJ Main Event, is that although COVID is starting to look more like a 2020 problem, for me, so I'm very, very what's the word? I am very straightforward and literal. So it's like I know for a fact that as things are starting to get much better, like especially during with the weather too, like DJ Main Event, I know in your area it's probably been warmer, just like how it's been warmer in my area, and so it's gotten to the point to where now, like, you know, perfect example, the past few days have been like the best days for the sun to be out because people are literally been outside with no mask on, talking about some, oh yeah, no mask, it's sunny, it's lit, I'm a Turk. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's still COVID, y'all. It's still COVID. But needless to say, even as COVID-19 is starting to look more and more like a 2020 problem, I still believe that there are going to be a lot of people that are still going to they're going one or two things. They're still going to have their mask on, regardless of wherever they go. And I do feel that as places actually start to open up within the spring, heading to the nearby future, I feel like it's going to be a dead-on split. I do feel that you're going to have half the population still like wear masks, still want to like be at home or not really want to have too much like, you know, stick to like social distancing. And then you'll have the other 50% to where they are doing the complete opposite. One, because they sick of wearing a mask. They sick of being at home. They sick of working remotely at the house. At this point, they're going to live their best damn lives. So it will just be interesting to see, you know, how it all turns around. And it'll be interesting to see in terms of, you know, the officials that we have, not just in the local and state departments, but also, mind you, it's going to be real interesting to see what regulations and laws and ideal bills that the United States Congress comes up with, right? Because at this point, like the first, I would say the first 30 to 65 days for the Biden administration and for the United States Congress was more focused on, okay, we have Biden, we have a new president, we have someone better than 45 actually in the White House, someone that knows how to go about regulations and knows how to actually get both liberals and conservatives to actually come together on certain matters. You know, let's come up with, say, a policy or rather a legislation that's going to actually help our citizens be able to actually, you know, move on or keep moving with that hope in the sense of being able to know that things are going to get better as we're like moving forward away from COVID-19. So I think the American Rescue Plan was definitely a great start. However, I think now with that American Rescue Plan, aka the COVID Relief Plan, now being into legislation, I do feel that this next phase of the Biden administration and for the U.S. Congress now is to set up certain policies that aren't just going to ensure that we don't have this same issue in COVID-19 again, but also so that we can actually tackle the issues, hopefully more so domestically than internationally. What do you guys, how do you guys feel about that? Let's see. Hey, Life of Taffy, what's going on? How are you, Life of Taffy? Thank you for hopping on the stream. I do appreciate you. How are you, Life of Taffy? So currently we are talking about legislation that will be passed, that will be known in say like your local news channel or within like your favorite news app, where case would be. And then we're also talking about legislation that may be passed in say like the House of Representatives and in the South in the Senate, or a case would be that most people may not have known about it. So we're not just talking about like actual legislation, but also possible bill ideas as well. So Life of Taffy, if you have any comments in regards to that, then by all means, please, comment them in the comment section so that way we can definitely talk about that as well. But I do want to jump back into the example that I had mentioned earlier when I was talking about the example of a hitting bill or possible, because I haven't heard anything from say my preferable political websites and media platforms, let alone from my particular sources in terms of some of the things that are going to actually be passed. But the example of the police department formalizing or at least finalizing particular programs that they're going to actually put in robotic dogs, so that while the robotic dogs are actually, making sure that the communities that they're going to be patrolling are actually doing their job in the community, you also have like literally like machines actually doing the same exact thing that a patrol officer, male, female, or they will be doing. It's going to be interesting. Now, I don't think they'll actually start doing that in, say, like this year, but I would argue that within the next 2 to 3 years, possibly time, between the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to actually start seeing more robotic dogs, robotic armed officers, or in case would be patrolling the streets, patrolling certain neighborhoods and communities, simply because one thing is apparent. With everything that happened with COVID-19, more and more people are now starting to go into that transition of going into a job. And well, they're making the transition from where it used to be cool to go and work and travel to a job to now where everyone is like willing to just work at home remotely, whether it's Zoom call or conference call or Skype or whatever case may be. So it's going to be interesting in terms of how they go about that. I am doing great. Just a little tired. Just got home from work. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. No problem. No problem at all, Life of Taffy. Thank you for hopping onto the live stream. I do appreciate you. I do appreciate you hopping onto the live stream as well. Definitely do appreciate that. Let me go over to my last banner for the podcast as well. So I want to talk about the significance of the legislation or the legislation ideas that not just the U.S. Congress and the President of the United States might formalize, in terms of after COVID, but also in terms of, say, your local mayor, your district attorney, for example, because I feel like when it comes to politics, a lot of people only focus on two branches of government, right? They focus on the executive branch, which is also going to be, the president of the United States and the administration. And then they focus on the legislation side, which is more so of the United States Congress. You have your 436 members of Congress split between, like, say, the House of Representatives and the Senate. But we don't hear too much about the local governments, or rather the state governments. Or we really haven't really talked much about the third branch of government, which is the judicial branch. And this is where I feel that for President Biden, for him, in order for President Joe Biden to really have a great first term as president, he's not just going to have to reach out and find a way to have a great bond with the United States Congress on the legislative end, but he's going to have a great bond with the judicial branch and with every single local government nationwide. He's going to have to, because if he's not willing to try to work something out with a lot of local governments, and particularly with the judicial branch, which for all of you who don't know and what the judicial branch of government is, the judicial branch of government particularly pertains to the 9 Supreme Court justices, right? So this is why it's important, because I don't know, DJ Main Event, you might remember this. Do you remember when Barack Obama was in office? I think it was he got in 2018, but this was towards of his first term, late 2001, early 2012. This was right around the time when the Affordable Care Act came into play. And as soon as he wanted to get a justice to equalize the other 8 justices to make it more like an even split between, Democrat judiciaries and conservative judiciaries, where the case may be, the Senate was like, nah, but we're not doing that. Nah, but we gonna make sure that sucker is called the Obama plan rather than the daggone Affordable Care Act. So I doubt that President Joe Biden will actually run into that same problem, especially given the circumstances in which this country is in, not just even with COVID-19, but also in terms of some of the other domestic and international problems that we as a nation, as the people, have to tackle within the next 4 to 8 years. But I'm bringing this subject up to the United States. And if the U.S. Congress actually operate the local government as well, it's just going to be another 4 years, but much worse, or in the same 4 years as we did with President Trump. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I feel like for this particular presidential administration, they have to be able to cooperate. They have to, because in my personal opinion, that's really going to be the true impact on the people, right? Obviously, COVID-19 has been a huge impact for every single body. It has affected everyone. But if we can't get our own president and for our own daggone United States Congress and the judicial branch, may I add, to actually cooperate with every single local government in order to not just avoid getting COVID-19 again, but also so that we can actually get every single citizen within this country to actually get back in the good graces again, we fucked. We plain and simple. Plain and simple. All right, let me see. Okay, with Democrats voting against the COVID relief plan, I can see some problems between Joe. Absolutely. Oh, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting, DJ Man Event. It's gonna be very interesting because you bring up a great point. There are Democrats that voted against the COVID relief plan, both in the House and in the Senate. So I feel like for President Joe Biden, it's not so much that, because here's the real interesting dynamic, and I'm glad you brought this up too, DJ Main Event. Despite of the Democrats having the majority or the slight majority in both the House and the Senate, that does not automatically mean that every single legislation that gets introduced in the House and the Senate, it doesn't mean that it's going to get passed. Why? Because they only have a very slight, slim majority, which means you would only need, it could be a legislation in the House side that might need, say, for example, 216 approval votes. And you might have, like, say, 5 to 6 Democrats. They may not even be for that bill. Because of those 5 and 6 Democrats that are voting against a particular legislation, it will not go to the Senate, and it damn sure won't even get to President Joe Biden. So I feel like for this particular president administration, not only is he going to have to convince, obviously the American people, and he's going to have to convince, the extreme right as well as the extreme left, When I say the extreme right, I mean as far as, far right conservatives and extreme left, meaning far of, leftists. These are more so like the socialists or some people that are Marxists. But in a nutshell, President Joe Biden, he's gonna have to find a way to not only to connect with everybody, but at least be able to at least get some respect from the people that he actually wants to make change for in a good way. Because right now, it's not looking too good. Now, as far as Trump being there, that's great that he's not a Donald Trump who's going to be making some big, wild, crazy shit happen. However, however, um, however, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. Either way, either way. You would think that since the Dems have the majority, that there wouldn't be problems having bills passed. It's just a lot of nonsense happening between the scenes. Absolutely, exactly. It is. It's so much. It's so much more. It's so much chaos that goes on within government. Period. And to your point, DJ Main Event, my issue with government over the last few years is that even when you do have, say, like you could have the best team, right? You can have the best team, a best group, or a case it be, and that entire group could still, they could be that group to where it's like, hey, we agree, we can all, do this together, let's make this happen. All it really takes is one person. It's just like you're taking the time to build your own house or build your own community. Or matter of fact, let's just stick to the house example. It's just like you're trying to work with your best friends, boyfriends, or case it be, and y'all want to build a house for your girlfriends and everything. And as y'all building this house together, all it takes is that one person out of your group to be like, you know what? This is a little neat idea. However, I'm going to make it better. And because I feel like I'm going to make it better, I'm going to fuck everything up. That's the problem with the United States politics as well. We have too many politicians that are either in government, whether it's local, state, and or federal, that just feel that rather than them focusing on the greater good, on the entire community, they're focusing on one or two things. They're either focusing on how it can benefit them, so there's that self-interest, and or they're only doing things up until a certain extent to where if it doesn't benefit them, then it's only going to benefit, like, say, their own peers or the people that they actually really, really want to, like, get done, set by, like, their own agenda or by their own people's agenda, or a case may be. In my personal opinion, and I know this is a little bit off topic, to my opinion, I feel like that's one of the biggest issues with our criminal justice system. We have too many people, and I'm not saying that all cops are like this, because I have come across some really, really great officers throughout my time. But the problem with the criminal justice system is that you have too many people in the criminal justice system, whether it's police officers or corrections officers or facilities for corrections or whatever the case may be. You have too many people in the criminal justice system that, quite frankly, are not doing their job to actually protect the people and actually make sure that the right result came out of the right situation, but they're just focusing on a quota, something that they know is going to impact their paycheck or impact their ability to do things based on the quality of lifestyle that they want, rather than focusing on, okay, if I make this mistake, or if I put this person, or if I make this certain legislation, how is it not just going to impact me, but how is it going to impact everyone that might be infected by it? So that's my whole issue with the criminal justice system, and also with politics as well. Hey, Protect Sports, what's going on, bro? Talk your ish, bro. You stupid. Protect, you know how I am when it gets to politics. You know how emotional I get. But I do appreciate you hopping into the live chat and commenting that, because You know me. I'm always going to speak my truth, regardless on what people say. So that's just, oh, excuse me. That's just how I'm always going to be. So I have no shame. I have no shame in my game. I have no shame in my game. So let me look through the comments as well, so that I can make sure that I did not miss anyone. So let me go ahead and do my commenters shout out real quick, and we'll go from first to last. Shout out to the Tuba chat. Thank you for attending to my podcast, Matters of the People. Definitely appreciate that. Thank you, Kara McCall. I'm glad I was actually able to give you some great, sufficient information. Shout out to my boy, I am DJ main event. If you guys want to go to a YouTube where you can actually dance your butt off in your own home or within your own area, where case it be, especially if you love Baltimore music, or if you are actually in Baltimore, check out my man, I am DJ Main Event. He always has some very sick, dope YouTube videos, man, especially when he be going crazy. Shout out to Life of Taffy. Appreciate you hopping on to the live stream and for allowing me to have this great platform for people like yourself that actually want to know more about politics and in general. And then last but not least, shout out to Protect Sports, who just got monetized a few days ago. So shout out to Protect Sports Network. Definitely proud of him. That's one of the reasons why I actually decided to create my own YouTube channel, as well as I am DJ Main Event. Thank you guys so much. I definitely appreciate all the motivation. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate the heart, man. I appreciate the heart. Any oops, let me see. Make sure I didn't miss anyone. Let's see. Go. I think that's about it. So, any final thoughts? Please comment them in the comment section, because this is our podcast. This is our time. If you guys have any any comments or questions in regards to any possible legislation that might be related to prior to COVID, or even like legislation that legislators might try to pass after COVID, please let me know in the comment section as well. Let's see, because right now I'm looking at my notes to make sure that I did not miss anyone. And I'm also looking at my notes as well on my phone to make sure that I didn't miss anything that that I wanted to talk about. Well, if there are no more comments, let me make sure I actually talked about everything that I actually wanted to talk about in tonight's live. Yeah, so that will be it for me, guys. I'll give you guys my final thoughts in regards to legislation that will either be formed in the present and or after in regards to life after COVID-19. Obviously, COVID-19 was without question one of the most bizarre, the unexpected issue that I feel like that every single person, not just every American, but every single person worldwide and throughout the universe, there was no way that we could have actually gone about. I mean, obviously there was a lot of ways that we could have avoided this particular issue to happen, but given the lack of political leadership, Trump, and due to the lack of proactiveness that I personally believe that we should have had, not just to combat COVID-19, but also to make sure that we will all actually at least be able to survive much longer. I'm just glad that the numbers of COVID-19 are starting to slightly decrease. However, I do not believe that that gives it like an excuse for a lot of states to actually start to open things back up, or rather for people to start having their own little mask off mandates, if you will. That's stupid. Okay? It's stupid. There's no reason to why I should be walking outside or why anyone should be able to walk outside in the United States and they walk out without their goddamn mask on. Okay? Listen, you better have your mask on. You better have your 4 to 5 bottles of hand sanitizer. Okay? 6 feet, not no 1 feet, not no daggone freaking 5'2" or 5 to 2 footsteps away from me. Okay? None of that. Okay? People, we need to still be in COVID-19 mode way back last year around this time. Keep your mask on. If you go outside, if you know you're going to be touching stuff, make sure you got your hand sanitizer, your gloves, at least have a set plan in terms of, if you do have to travel, either in state or out of state, have a set plan to where okay, this is where we're going to go. This is how long we're going to be there. This is when we're going to make it, home or leave the event, wherever case it be, because it's still COVID, bro. It's still COVID. People are still dying out here. We still got a whole bunch of people that are living out in poverty that can't really afford their own homes, that don't even have their own mask on, whatever the case may be. So my final thoughts on this particular issue is that I'm glad that we do have somewhat a new political agenda in the White House and within politics somewhat, but that does not mean that we can go all crazy and celebrate as if we just got out of World War II or if we just got out of the Great Depression. Because in my personal opinion, we still are trying to recover from those two issues. And we have a lot more myriad of issues that we still have to tackle on. But the only way we're actually going to be able to do that is if we keep living through peace, love, and transparency. That is the only way we're going to get through this together. We do have a comment. Let's see. All right, let's see. The virus shouldn't have been politicized. Had that not have happened, I think it could have been dealt with much better. Interesting. Yeah, because in a lot of ways, you do, at least from what I remember when it first happened, I kind of saw a lack of, not just a lack of effort towards getting their constituents to actually be more aware of it, but also just a lack of action. It was just so bizarre in terms of how people were actually able to just go about handling with that. I just didn't like it. I just really, really did it. You hopping off the street and then hitting you street. No, I am not. No, I am not. That is dead. The last time I was on U Street DC was about 5 months ago, and I am not. Absolutely not. Listen, my party days ended. What was it? I think it was the last February of last year. Yep, that was the last week that I ever went to an actual club, and ever since then, I was just like, nah, bro, forget that. That's dead. That's dead. I ain't gonna hold you. Heck no. Now, don't get me wrong. I will go to say a bar if I happen to know that bar is not at full capacity, or if it doesn't have more than say 5 people in it, because there are some places to where you can actually go to where when they're just opening up, and depending on the day of the week as well too. But nah, but I ain't going to no daggone. I'm not going to no party. I'm definitely not going to be traveling anytime soon. Nah, listen, y'all not going to catch me in no daggone club or no daggone party until I'll say early like early 2000, between early 2022 and late 2023. To be honest with y'all, I can't. Not me. I can't do it. Now, if you do DJ main event, have like a little like YouTube party, something like that, when you playing your dope music, sure, I'll party at my home. I'll get my due say. But nah, bro, I'm not. I ain't gonna be going out anytime soon. Nah, man. I wish I could, but I'm not. I'm not gonna be hitting up no Yushi anytime soon. Uh, you about to be at Don Tito's tonight? Oh, that's dead. You stupid. Look, I don't even like that place. Hey, don't get me started. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That's why you got your haircut. You about to be pulled. Nah, I got it. I got it. This haircut because I was looking at Chewbacca for the last 2 to 5 months. That was ridiculous. I was like, oh Lord, I gotta get this. I gotta get this haircut. Look, I had to get my fade, but I had to get my fade. You know how I am about my fade. But I'm going to wrap it out here. Thank you so much for everybody that was actually able to attend to the podcast Matters of the People. So I will have my third episode. Actually, I can make this announcement now. So the way that I'm going to do the next episode of Matters of the People. So the topic for my third episode, well, at least episode 3C, because there's 3 parts. 3C's episode of Matters of the People will be on Black men and Black women, the bridge for Black women and Black men to actually unite. But there will be 2 previous parts to it. So the 16th will be on how the first one will be on the 16th, and that will specify in terms of like what Black women can do to actually unify, not just with themselves, but also with the Black men. And then the very next day, the 17th of March, will go more so into the opposite in terms of how Black men can not only unite with themselves, but also unite with Black women as an entire race. And those 2 podcasts alone will then lead up to the third official episode of Matters of the People, which will be Black men and Black women, the bridge of Black men and Black women actually uniting together. So if any of you guys are actually interested in being guests for that episode or for any of my future Matters of the People podcasts, please hit me up on my Instagram, Live with Cross. As a matter of fact, I'm going to edit this so that you guys can actually see my Instagram, because I do have 2, but I usually use this one because it is the one that I've always used the most. All right. So if you guys are interested in being a guest speaker in my podcast, my Instagram handle is the ticker that is going around right now. It is live W Cross 92. So should any of you guys be interested in any or being a guest speaker or guest speakers, because I can have more than one person as a guest speaker, please be sure to contact me on Instagram at live with Cross 92. But with that, y'all, I am out because I am starving and I need to get ready since I have work early in the morning. So I appreciate everyone that did in fact hopped into the live stream. And I also appreciate everyone who not only enjoyed and watched my live stream, but also to everyone that commented in the live stream as well. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to AV Automatic Victory. And please be sure to make sure that you hit the ring bell notifications. You can personalize them too. You don't have to hit the bell and be notified of all of the times when I go live or when I do, release a video on my YouTube channel. But especially if you enjoy the Matters of the People's podcast, please be sure to make sure that you're not only subscribed to the channel, but make sure that you have your own personalized ring bell notifications with this YouTube channel as well. So appreciate everyone that attended and that also commented with me and had a great conversation with you guys overall tonight. And again, if any of you guys are interested in being a guest speaker or speakers in my future podcast, please be sure to message me on Instagram at live with WCross92. And I will have it on here in the ticker for one last time. But if you guys are interested in being a guest speaker in my future podcast of Matters of the People, please be sure to follow me on Instagram. And my Instagram handle is down right below. It is live WCross92. So with that, I'm out, y'all. I have hit the hour mark, and I will see you guys next Tuesday, the 16th. I will see you guys next Tuesday on the 16th. Till then, take care and stay blessed.